Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from AnthonysCustoms, and for this review, we are looking at the Vulcanlog, or it's really just a Revoltech. I mean, when you boil it down, it's a Revoltech. Monster Hunter, whatever this guy is, I don't know, and all it says is Hunter, Monster Hunter, I don't know who this is. I'll look it up, it'll be in the title, you'll have already seen that, and I shouldn't even be bothering to explain this, but I'm not into Monster Hunter yet. People keep telling me to, and I keep seeing cool things, so I'm going to eventually get into it. But as of now, I can just review the figure on its own merits. Likeness is going to be up to you to decide if you are a Monster Hunter person. But this is a really cool looking figure. My buddy let me borrow his so I could review it, so that's what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 6 1/4 inches to the top of the head. If you count the little spiky thingies, closer to 6 3/4 inches. That's going to make him just about 15 to the top of the head and closer to 17 to the top of the spiky things. Now, the first thing I want to point out is this guy looks fantastic, and the paint job is particularly good on this. It looks really, really nice. However, it doesn't look as nice as it does on the package. Only in that you can see that the red is much more red in the package, and that the silver spots are a lot brighter, more of like a pewter color. So, I don't know which one's more accurate. Like I said, I'm not familiar. Based on the artwork down here, it's actually somewhere in the middle. I can't tell. Maybe it looks like that's actually the figure, and it was like more from up here. I don't know. You guys that are into Monster Hunter can let me know which one's more accurate, but it still does look good on its own, so that's fine. Let's go ahead and zoom in so you can see some of these details. The face looks really nice. They got the one eye painted very well. Lots of little shading throughout all of the red spots, especially these ones that look a little bit more like scales or something like that. There's lots of shading in there. There's nice red to purple shading on these big shoulder pads. Lots of nice little details in here. You can see these belt straps down here where the brown is. Really, really nicely painted. There's shading, there's silver on there, little rivets painted throughout. Really impressive paint job on this guy. I really, really like it. I'm even tempted to buy one for myself now after looking at this because it's really cool. And I'm not like wholesale against Revoltech. I just don't like a lot of their design choices in terms of engineering. But that doesn't mean they can't make a cool figure, and this one looks like it might end up being a pretty cool figure. Before we get into the figure anymore, though, let's talk accessories. We have the 2 fist hands that come on him in the package, 2 gripping hands, and then 2 Style Pose Jazz hands. We have a little display stand effect part for the foot, which is really just to give him like kind of a dynamic feel and a little bit of extra balance. We have one small sword, which is pretty cool, except they put a peg on it so that it could peg into his butt panel, which is silly. The panel should have had the peg on it, not the sword. Now the sword looks goofy. That's a shame. And then we have his big-ass awesome sword, which is so really well done. Very, very cool. But it also does peg onto his back, but you have to use a separate peg for that. And he does come with a display stand, which is nice. That's always helpful for a big, bulky figure like this. So, we have lots of really cool sculpt work on this guy, lots of really cool paint work. How's the articulation gonna hold up? Well, it's essentially the same as almost every other Revoltech I've ever reviewed that's in the humanoid format, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially for this guy, because they actually did a few things that I really like. One of the things that I think is really cool, and I don't know how accurate it is, but his head, it moves around nicely on top of the standard joint that they have in the neck, but then they also have another big joint down there that lets the head come really far forward. So I don't know if it's supposed to do that in the... Is it a game? Or is it... I think it's just a game, right? It's not an anime. Maybe it is. I don't know. Anyway, it's got all kinds of crazy range in the neck. I don't know if it's supposed to be able to do that, but if it is, that's really cool. And it's still really well engineered, but if it's not supposed to do that, then it's kind of pointless. But regardless, you can pretty much move the head however you want to, and you're not going to really have any trouble. So that's cool. Shoulder pads are on little tiny ball hinges, it looks like. Can't really see in there to check, and I can't pull them off since it's not mine, but shoulder pads move around pretty well. And he has big ball hinges for the shoulders rather than those 2 double hinges, which is just an absolutely terrible design. This is much more of a traditional build for them. It's still angled at a funny angle, so you're going to have to kind of fight with it to get the arms to go where you want. It pegs in this way, which is just awkward, but you can do it. We still have a big cutout in the arms. I don't know why they can't figure out a way to make articulation work without cutting gouges out of the sculpt, but you do get decent range out of this, especially given the fact that he's got these big bulky shoulder pads. It works particularly well, and even if it's a pain in the butt, it does still work, so that's good. You can see right there, there's a swivel right there at the bicep in there, and then we do of course have a standard hinge down here lower in the forearm than you would expect it to be, but it does give you some range, so that's pretty good. And then you have your ball hinge wrists. So pretty decent for the shoulders. For the torso, it's just like almost every Revoltech. They have one of those big ratchet ball hinges in there. It doesn't go too far back. That's pretty much the extent, which is essentially just straight up and down. But it does go really far forward, which is what they're known for. So that's good if you like that. You can rotate it around on either end of the pegs, but they do peg in at angles, like going backwards or forwards, so it's a little tricky there. This is mostly just a floating piece. These guys have little ball hinges that let them move around, so that's helpful. This guy has a little hinge on it, and this guy has a ball hinge. So the skirt goes pretty much wherever you need it to go, except for right here. Right where it's going to get in the way, it really can't move. Then for the hips, what do we have for the hips? I didn't really look at these yet. It looks like, yep, just big old ball hinges. At a weird angle, though. It's a little awkward to use this guy, use his hips, but you can get him in some pretty cool poses. It's really weird to bring his leg forward, and then because of this armor right here, that gets in the way. It's a little tricky to pose his legs coming forward. I guess you can get most of the range out of it, but you're going to have to do it at kind of an angle. So it's a little weird. I don't know why they do things the way they do. I mean, have you ever seen the hinge be more exposed on the outside of the leg so that you can do this as opposed to on the inside of the leg? That, because of all that extra meat in there on the inside of the leg, you can't bring the leg forward. It's just weird. I don't know why they do things like that. I mean, I get, like, you want this, but you can get that range pretty much anyway, so it's very strange. So the knees just on another ball hinge, which is pretty much standard for them, but it works really nicely. No problem at all, really good range. And even though the ball hinge is pretty obvious, this ball hinged knee pad does hide it mostly, so that's pretty good. So I like the knees, it works nicely. And of course you can rotate every limb that's on one of these ball hinges, because they're just ball hinge with straight peg on either end, so you can rotate stuff as you need to. So that's kind of good, I guess, if you need to do that. What's not good is the ankle design, because it does technically have a ball hinge, and you get a little bit going back, almost none going forward, and the way it's designed, you get minimal ankle rocker, so that's not great. It definitely could be better. And then you get kind of a lousy toe hinge. It's not particularly good. It has almost no range. So mostly this guy's going to be able to pose pretty well. It's going to be kind of a pain in the butt to do it, but you really should be able to get the poses you want out of him, which I think is fine. And he does hide the ugliness of some of their joints pretty well because of all this crazy armor. So yeah, once you find a good pose for him, I think it's going to be pretty awesome. Otherwise, it's going to look kind of weird, but he's a good example of how you can hide ugly joints without having to pose a figure in crazy poses. So yeah, I think this is one of the better Revoltech designs I've seen, and I think most people are going to like it, especially if you're into Monster Hunter. So I would say go ahead and check it out, and I'll have some photos here at the end so you can see some of the extent of his articulation. I can't spend a whole day posing this guy, which I feel like it would take if I wanted to really show you all of his range. But anyway, I think you're going to like it, so let's just leave it at that. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, keep collecting.